Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming early this morning to be able to talk with us. Mr. Crittenbrink, I want to start with you. You and I have had some conversations before in the Foreign Affairs Committee about coalition building. And I wanted you to just kind of share with this committee, how do you think of the importance of coalition building to the work that we're trying to do vis-a-vis China and across the Indo-Pacific?
Thank you, Congressman. I would argue that revitalizing and strengthening our allied and partner relationships is the most important part of our entire approach to the Indo-Pacific. And I would also argue it's the most important part of our China strategy.
Thank you. Dr. Ratner, what are your thoughts? How would you position the importance of coalition building and the work that DoD is doing to position ourselves to prepare for anything that could occur in that theater?
Congressman Kim, it's absolutely central to our strategy. It's central to deterrence and, in some instances, to war fighting. And we've made great progress in this regard in terms of supporting our allies' ability to strengthen their own capabilities, deepening our bilateral alliances and partnerships, and also linking together our alliances in unprecedented ways.
I think the two of you would say that there's still more work to be done. Is that correct, Mr. Crittenbrink?
Absolutely. I think what we've achieved is unprecedented, but we have to keep at it, and there's more
Dr.
we can
Ratner.
and should do.
Absolutely, and we're getting on a plane with the Secretary down to Australia next week to continue these efforts.
With the recent engagements that our government has been doing with, most notably Secretary Blinken and others, Mr. Crittenbrink, how is that being perceived by our partners? Is that helping or hurting our ability to build these coalitions?
I would say each of our partners has communicated to us that they welcome that outreach. Again, our partners are very clear-eyed about the challenges that China poses. They communicate that with us as well. They have been reassured and gratified by our re-energized commitment to the region and building those partnerships, but they're also reassured by our engagement with the Chinese because no one wants to see conflict in the region.
One thing that you mentioned before in different settings that I thought was important to elucidate here, I think we were expressing how different partners, they've expressed that it's important for the United States to be seen as being a responsible actor, that not be the one that's being the provocateur, the one that is destabilizing relations. Is that correct, Dr. Crittenbrink?
I think it's absolutely correct. I think it's clear who's challenging the rules-based order and the status quo in the region, and that is the PRC. But I think when we continue to demonstrate that we are committed to the long-term prospects of the region, that we are the responsible actor, I think it's very much to our benefit.
Dr. Ratner, your thoughts on this? How important is it that we be seen as being the responsible actor to show that we're using every and all means to be able to avoid conflict as possible?
It's fundamentally important, Congressman, and that is why it is so important to us to operate in accordance with international law and responsibly as we do throughout the region.
I raise these points because we're having a fundamental debate here right now, not just in this room, but here on Capitol Hill, about the role of diplomacy, about the role of coalition building, about these different tools in our toolbox. And I'll be honest with you, I'm getting pretty alarmed by where the trajectory is going. We've seen how the House Appropriations Committee has been moving forward when it comes to the state foreign ops spending portion. 24% below the president's request. I guess, Mr. Crittenbrink, I want to ask you, from your perspective, what would that do to our ability to execute our strategy in the Indo-Pacific vis-a-vis China?
Thank you, Congressman. I had the opportunity to speak to this in front of the HVAC Asia Subcommittee just a couple of days ago. I think that drastic cuts to our budget in this era of strategic competition would be devastating to what we're trying to achieve. And as we're working aggressively to outcompete China, this isn't the time to withdraw or reduce our investments. I think it's the time to increase those investments. That's why the president has submitted the budget request that he has.
And Dr. Ratner, am I correct in thinking that that doesn't just hurt us on the diplomatic side? Does that impact you? And in addition, I want to bring on top of that, the fact that we got about 275 general officers and flag officers being held up in terms of their appointments. How does that, these types of missteps and honestly self-inflicted wounds affect your ability on the DoD side?
Congressman, when our three secretaries appeared before the Senate Appropriations Committee earlier this year, Secretary Austin was very clear that DoD succeeds when our partner agencies succeed. So absolutely, when it comes to the strength of diplomacy and our economic policy, it's fundamentally essential to our ability to succeed in the defense realm. And as it relates to nominations, I think as is true with the State Department, we will succeed when we have our teams in place. And I think our senior officials have been very clear about how important that is.
Thank you. I yield back.
Ms. Steele is recognized.